Thank you for tapping in to My Safe Place with Tati's podcast, where you can relax and unwind. This is a live podcast that takes place on Facebook Live every Wednesday. And I'm your host, Tati Harden. On this podcast, there is no cap. I talk about various topics, especially the uncomfortable ones. I also include Tati's ugly truth. You know, I have to keep it real. Most importantly, my podcast give you resources that helps you with your day-to-day life. This is a judgment-free zone and all are accepted. Let's get started into tonight's episode. So, this is My Safe Place with Tati, where your thoughts and feelings are protected. And I'm your host, Tati Harding. And thank you for tapping into Season 2, Episode 16. To stay in tune with me, to get regular updates, you can follow me on my social media platforms at A2 Books Inc. and at My Safe Place with Tati Harding. And, of course, my beautiful website, which is updated right now, www.mysafeplace.org with the dashes in between. And this episode tonight is called Soothing Hearts. The topic is grief, and it's not a sad episode. We're not going to be shedding tears or anything of the sort. It's more so of an informative episode, but I'm going to get more into that. The intro songs, of course, was Aaliyah, I Miss You, and DMX. I was going to play that, but I'm like, no. But God is Working by Dion Kippings. That was a good, powerful song. And the song of the episode is Dancing in the Sky by Lizzie. The quote of the episode, which it's an all-around quote that pertains to everything that's going to be talked about, not just specifically to a lost one. It's the pain passes, but the beauty remains. And that's by Pierre. And there is no special guest for the episode. So, but if you do want to share like how you're coping with grief, words of encouragement, support, any questions, comments while I'm speaking, feel free to join live or comment below if you would like. So let's just jump right into it. I decided to talk about grief because this is something that everybody faces on a daily basis, but it's uncomfortable to talk about. And it's something that needs to be talked about so we can find better coping strategies for ourselves, as one would say. And there is no right or wrong way to grieve. So I'm not going to tell you today, oh, you should be grieving this way, you should be grieving that way. No, it's not going to be like that. So just stay with me. So when we hear grief, we automatically attach it to death, like someone passes away. But any loss can cause grief. So basically, what is grief? Grief is just a reaction. It's just our way of processing the loss that we just endured. But there are different type of losses that I'm going to mention other than passing of a human. So we have death of a pet, loss of a cherished dream, losing yourself, loss of a friendship, loss of a safety after trauma. So basically, a disturbing event, a traffic accident, a violent crime, say if you got robbed or something like that, that can cause grief. A natural disaster, especially people in Florida may encounter this, like with the hurricanes and like the floods and the tsunamis. Selling your family home, a divorce or relationship breakup, the loss of your health, loss of a job or life, a loss of financial stability. Those are all can be considered a loss that you can grieve. And just to touch on some example of those, just to touch on some examples of those. First, let's just say a loss, like losing yourself, basically. Whenever you lose yourself, you're losing your identity. You're mourning your sense of self, because then now you're grieving of the person who you thought you were, and now you're coming to terms with reality, like this is not who I am, and now you're trying to navigate it into your new life. Like, how can I incorporate my old me into what I'm doing now? Like, you're really not balancing yourself. And I feel like this is something that we do on a regular basis. Like, we find ourselves losing ourselves, but it's like different events that happen in our life. Like, if you have a baby, you can get married, you can lose your job. It's like different events that might stir you away from losing yourself, or you slip into a depression and you can lose yourself. I did have a webinar, getting back to me webinar, and I do still have the PDF file. So if anybody wants them files, I can send it over. It's basically how to find yourself, like find out who you are, your purpose, when to refuel yourself, your signs that, this is it, putting your boundaries in place and stuff like that, and instilling your goals mostly and where you want to go. So that I felt like is very, I felt like that was an important thing, that a loss that we encounter every day, basically. Next is loss of a cherished dream. Dealing with hopes and dreams are going unfulfilled. And this sparks a question in my mind, which somebody asked me too, is are you living your dream that you had as a child? So some people like, by 25, I'm going to have to be married. I'm going to be rich. I'm going to do this. So then now when you're 29 and you don't have none of those things, now you're starting to grieve the childhood memory that you had. Like, oh my God, now I'm losing myself. Like, I don't know what to do now because I was supposed to do this. And you just got to give yourself grace and remember everything happens on God's timing. So if you're not going to be a billionaire by 29, maybe by 55 you might be. Who knows? But you still got to stay consistent with your goals and stay positive, because once you reach a child, it's like a childhood memory is basically a childhood memory until you become adult and be like, oh no, what was I thinking as adult? Because let's be real, our parents was paying for stuff. We didn't have no worries in the world. So our dreams was kind of unrealistic. In the point, like, oh, when I get older, I want to own this mansion, or not say mansion, but I was like, oh, I want to live in the city. Then I became an adult, and I see that the city rent is $3,000 for a studio. I'm okay. I'm all set. I'll pass. Who do you think I am, Oprah? So I'll pass on that. So I live in a comfortable residential setting here where I'm safe and I'm content. So sometimes the goals that and dreams that you have as a child may not match up with your adulthood. So that's okay too. Then a person going through divorce. One thing that we never do is really take time to somebody who's going through a divorce or a breakup and be like, just get over it, go find somebody else or whatever. But that, I feel, they'd be like, what hurts harder than a breakup? Somebody eating my food, yeah, but like that hurts, like that really hurts. And they're grieving of not being connected with that partner anymore. Like, I'm not a wife or I'm not a husband. It's like, now, I'm just me. So then, like, now who are you? Because you was a wife, so you did the wife moves, or you was a husband, so you provided the house, the husband duty. So it's like, now who are you once you detach from them? That's why it's very important to form your own identity within a marriage or within a relationship. I feel like that was definitely important to mention, and we probably go into deeper details with that. Another example was, I mentioned loss of health. So this will go to like the breast cancer survivors, especially like the people who would have had the amputees. I don't remember the proper name for it. Excuse me. Exactly, intertwined. Right. I can't remember the name of it. I don't know how to properly pronounce the name, but when they get their breasts amputated, they lose their sense of femininity. Like, I'm not a female anymore. I'm not a woman. Like, and people classify like certain body parts as being a woman. No, but you are a survivor. Like, you're stronger than any other woman ever. Like, that's what it is. Yeah. It's like, but you're still strong. Like, you survived something and you endured it. Like, and it don't make you any less of a woman. You're just stronger than what it is. But people can seek that as a loss. A person who loses or switches careers grieve a loss of their identity. I had to do my research on this one because I was very confused, but then it made sense to me. I found out that losing their identity because of the profession that they are. So basically, if you're a financial advisor and you get fired, you start questioning your abilities. Like, am I a good advisor? Am I really good at math? Should I start switching who I am? Or should I go to science? Or should I just leave it all alone? So you really start questioning yourself, and then you're putting yourself in a glass box. So now you're starting looking at your other coworkers, but like, this person did this wrong. And you start really, really, really putting doubt on yourself and really belittling yourself. And in reality, it could just be they're taking cutbacks. So, first one in, last one out type thing. It could just be like that. So you really start to lose yourself. And I feel like I never got fired from a job. So I can't really say, oh, I know the feeling of it. But when I lost, when COVID was going on and my job involved going in, being hands on, and then now I'm at home, I'm like, before I was loving it, 'cause I'm like, oh, but I could have did this at home. But then after that, I'm like, so what am I doing now? Like, what's next for me? Like, I was doing this. I was working with children with autism for so many long years. That happened to me. My career was halted because of the lockdown. But finally, I'm finding a new pathway. 3 years, almost 4 years later. Yeah, but it's like you definitely found something for yourself, which is good. And I'm glad that you still kept on pursuing and kept on going to be like, okay, I can do something. And you're very smart. So it's like, and you have no children, so you can work in your schedule. So that is actually good. So I'm glad that you did find something that worked out for you. Okay, so we just did the careers, right? And then getting a promotion. So people be like, why are you sad that you got a promotion? It's more pressure. I feel like they feel like it's more pressure on them because now I was very comfortable. I was very content doing what I was doing. Now I'm viewed differently. Now you expect more. So now I'm held to a standard. I don't know if I can hold that standard. So that really puts another stress on them to really second guess themselves, getting up and moving up in ranking, especially if you was like just a regular employee. Now you're a CEO. So now it's just like, oh my God, can I handle this? Can I do this? Now you're grieving the loss of that position that you had once in. Okay. Loss of health. Did I use that one? I did. Yes, loss of health. Another loss of health one, which was a good example. Elderly people, right? The older they get, the less they're able to take care of themselves, and they're grieving their incline. So that also ties into their loss of identity too. Like, I don't know who I am because I need help with doing everything, and if I need help with everything, what's my purpose? So. And I can understand my grandmother, God bless her heart, like, I don't know what to do with her. But she's older, up in age, but she's good. She's walking around with her. I think she's still driving, but it's like certain things, like, okay, grandma, like, you gotta take these, but she's like, I'm not doing it. As much as I can do, she could keep on doing because she don't want to lose her identity. She don't want to be independent. So now I get it. Like, it clicks with me. Like, she just don't want to lose her identity and her independence. So I definitely get that. So those are some examples of the loss that I mentioned. So we're gonna switch gears a little bit, right? So grief is extremely complicated. Why I say that is because we don't have the access to educate ourselves on the grief. And we don't have the proper time. We don't give ourselves the proper time to grieve. We live in the circle of life, like Mufasa said. We live, we pass, we birth, we keep that cycle going. But nowhere in there do we find time to sit down, reflect, take the time to heal, process all that. We miss all of that. And then when I say access, of course, to books, the unbiased media outlets, relationships with others who have experienced grief. And this part is important because so many of us just push through with the lack of options to survive and just deal with it. Like, okay, it's life, so it's gonna happen. But it's life, but why aren't we prepped for this? Like, why don't we have the tools? Why can't we go? Well, I can't say can't. Why don't people want to go to therapy? Why do people want to hold it in and stuff like that? Especially men. Men don't like to show their emotions on their sleeves, which is fine. So everybody grieve differently, like I said before. But if you do have some unhealthy ways of grieving, it can really take a toll on you. So let's talk about the cliche statement, right? I feel like it's cliche because everybody say it, but after you really sit down and think about it, and after doing the research that I've been doing, everyone handles and rare grief differently. There's no right or wrong way, but still everyone judge you on how you grieve. Right. I feel like the person who I feel like who gets the most scrutiny of how they grieve are celebrities, because now they're in a public figure. They're a public figure, so now it's like, oh, why isn't she crying? Or why is she like King Von's girlfriend? When he passed away, they wanted her to mourn forever and ever and ever. But then she had a club appearance, so she went out. But then it's like that's how she copes, like doing fun things. That's how she copes when people judged her. So what does grief look like? Which also applies to the things that I mentioned before, the type of losses. So grief look like verbal or physical aggression, avoiding and being reluctant to spending time with others, crying spells, disappearance or withdrawing completely. And that phase, like that statement, if you see somebody who just lost a family member and they be like, she's just there. He's just there. They just look like their soul is just gone. They're just there. They're carrying on. That's definitely what grief looks like. People only attach emotions to grief, which we'll get to, but there are some physical reactions to grief. For example, hollow feeling in your stomach, tightness and heaviness in your chest or throat, oversensitivity to noise, difficulty breathing, feeling very tired and weak, the lack of energy, dry mouth, increase and decrease of your appetite, finding it hard to sleep or fear of sleeping, aches and pains. So for me, when my grandfather passed away, I got cluster headaches. So basically it's just like a headache that sits on one part of your head, and it's like the shooting pain. It's like a pain, like it just pains. So like it happened for at least a month straight. So if you get a regular migraine, okay. So imagine a cluster headache. So you can do your research on that. And I was in and out of the hospital. So I would go to the hospital to get the Benadryl or some of the medicines that they would give me. And I swear, like, it would take the pressure of the headache away, like, but it would not take the pain, the sharp pain away. So I just had to relax. Like, I had to understand. Like, I really took that because my grandfather, everybody know I love my grandfather, but that took me for a doozy. So while we're talking about the episode, so my grandfather, he lived in North Carolina from birth to present. Like, even till present, he's still active, right? So he called us Thanksgiving and said that he only have this amount of time. Okay. So I was prepping, we prepped my family. I told my mother and my father, do not call me when I'm at work. Make sure I'm home. Like, we had a whole planned out thing, how they're going to break it to me, everything, just because the anticipation of it. So my grandfather never missed a holiday. He never missed a birthday. He's going to call. So he called me, So on Christmas Day, he's very Christian based. He's an apostle. He was an apostle. So he's very Christian based. I love the Lord. I loved it. So Christmas Day, I was expecting him to be the one to call me so he could talk about the Bible for a little bit. And then and that's when I had my daughter so he could, ask questions about her. So when I answered the phone and it wasn't him, it was his son. And then he's like, they call me Tata. He's like, is it Tata? I'm like, yeah. He's like, I'm sorry to inform you, that Norman passed. And like, I can literally, how you hear the voice, like I feel like the breath coming through the phone, and I just hit the floor and I just started crying because I couldn't believe it. Like, I couldn't, like, what? Like, I wasn't expecting that, especially on Christmas Day. And then it was the part of me have to process, like, how do I tell my father that his father just passed away? And then, like, I didn't know. I didn't want to be the one to do that. I didn't know, but I feel like everything happened for a reason. God had a plan for me to get that phone call, to carry it on. So just everything just kept on replaying in my head. So then I started listening. I tapped back into my spiritual side. And like, I'm not gonna say I fell away from it, but it's like, I just tuned more. I just locked in more. And Smokey Norfield, I understand. I played that song. That was on repeat. Repeat. And I got it. I got it. I understand. Like, that's what made me relax a little bit and work through the healing process once my body calmed down. Like, I wasn't eating and I was triggering my headaches too. So as it's a lot of physical stuff that goes with the grief. If you don't have somebody and family in your corner to help you, please seek a therapist or go a support group, something, because it is tough. It's very, very, very tough. Now we're gonna move on to emotional grief. And emotional grief goes hand in hand with the 5 stages of grief, which is denial. This can't be happening to me. Anger. Why is this happening to me? Who is to blame? Bargaining. Make this happen and I will return. Or people were like, Lord, if you just bless him or you just save him one more time, I promise I'll go to church for 3 Sundays and 2 weekends. So they're trying to negotiate a little bit. Depression. I'm too sad to do anything. Acceptance. I'm at peace with what happened. So these are the 5 stages, and it can apply to any of the losses that I mentioned prior to as well. But everybody takes time on different stages. So I seen somebody go through the denial stage. Then I seen them go through the anger stage. I feel like some of the bargaining and denial kind of went hand in hand with the person that I seen. And then depression stage. And they've been on this depression stage for a very, very, very long time. So I don't know when they're going to get to the acceptance stage. That's definitely on them. But only thing we could do right now is just support them as much as we can. And just be like, console them as much. But then it is grief etiquette, as they would say, where you don't just overpower them. Every time you see them have a pity party or whatever, try to encourage them a little bit. I had Shamoya's mother. If whoever don't know Shamoya, she was at the time 13 years old. She was struck by a stray bullet and had her on. And how she's coping with the grief, of course, she's going to therapy. But she wants to be around laughter. She wants to be around people that makes her happy and laughing. And, she don't want to be a Debbie Downer. If you're a Debbie Downer, don't be around her. So people grieve differently. And I feel like that was one of the best things that I heard, because even me, I was like, oh my God, like how was she dealing with, she lost that was her only child. So how is she dealing with that? But then you see her, she's smiling, her smile is so radiant, she could fill up the room. So it's like, that's nothing but God that can help on her. And therapy. So emotional reactions to grief is what we all encounter more than anything. So here are some examples of the emotional grief. So shock and disbelief can happen, and this comes from like unexpected losses and then tragic losses, as you would say. Right after loss, it can be hard to accept what happened. You may feel numb, have trouble believing that the loss really happened, or even deny the truth. Say if a pet or someone has died, you're expecting them to show up, even though they're not going to. So that's another thing of shock and disbelief. Next is sadness. Profound sadness is the most common emotion in grief. And when I say profound, I mean, some people will say excessive sadness, but it's like, that's the feeling of emptiness, despair. The yearning is like a deep loneliness. You cry a lot, you feel emotionally unstable. And I want to stop right there, right? Emotional unstable, you're always crying. It's okay to cry. If you need to cry 20 times a day, if need be, do it. Give yourself time and grace. Definitely time, because if some people be like, you take it day by day. Sometimes you gotta take it minute by minute, second by second. Especially if the loss is tragic. Even if if you're losing of a relationship or a job, something, because you're really trying to process things. So give yourself time. But during that sad phase, though, you will experience some triggers, which the triggers in this sense are memories. Little details of that significant other can make you sad, and that's okay. That is definitely okay. But some things to recognize within your sadness stage, you can slip into a depression. And I will go into some coping strategies in a few, but it is great to know the signs of depression, the symptoms of it, and write down, start journaling. Like, okay, I feel sad, but if I start doing this, then I know I'm slipping into a depression. So definitely keep track of things, because it's easily to mistake sadness for depression. But next is guilt. You may regret or feel guilty about the things you did or didn't say before a person passes away. So this is the most common thing too, right? People were like, "Oh, I wish I had this. I could have said this, or I wish we could have amends before this person passed away. I should have said I loved you more." That's when you get in the regret stage so much. Like, "Oh, I really wish I could have did this. I wish I could do that." You can. This this is it. And we never know when God is gonna call us home. So treat the people that you love with love and care every day. If you are going through a hardship with a friend, family member, let it go. Even if you have to speak to them, still let it go so you can be at peace with yourself. Pray about it, that's the last thing I could say too. Forgiveness. I'm gonna have a forgiveness episode. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things we have to do, but forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. And remember that. Remember that. But give people their flowers when they're here, and we can't stop God's plan. So it's like, "Oh, if I would have did this before that." No, God said right now, this is what it's going to be. So make sure you're living right too. Some people also feel like the guilt. I should have been there to share the last breath with them. And this can happen when a tragic death or unexpected loss, and we don't know the minute or the hour of when our time is being called. So you need to stop taking that pressure off yourself to be like, "Oh, I wish I should have been there." You didn't know at 12:09 that person was gonna get into a car accident. You didn't know that walking down the street on a regular day that the stray bullet is gonna come hit somebody. You don't know that while you walking, minding your business, the car is gonna jump the curb or a freakish accident. You don't know. So please don't put that pressure on yourself of, "I wish I could have been there to share that moment with them," because if you were there to share that moment with them, you wouldn't be there neither. Not to sound selfish, but it's like, let's be a little reasonable there. I can understand if somebody is in their deathbed and be like, "Okay, I could spend them," because this person is here. I'm not leaving. I'm locked in. So that's a huge difference between those two. Another thing people feel guilty about is laughing and enjoying themselves with life, and they self-sabotage those moments. It's okay to feel joy. It's okay to feel happiness. It's okay to laugh. During your grieving process as well. That can help you a lot. It doesn't take away from the grief. It actually gives you a distraction. So you know how people say they stay busy. "Oh, I gotta stay busy all the time. I gotta keep on doing something to get my mind off of things." Yeah. So you can substitute some of your grief with joyful moments, or you can create new moments. So even if you are cleaning, you're like, "Oh my God, this person, I remember I always have to clean up after this person." That could be a joyous moment. Don't take it into, "Oh my God, he's not here, I never have to clean up after him." Be like, "Okay, I remember we used to do this." So spark good memories from those things. Who's a great example of that, right? You want to live the happy moments with them is DC Young Fly. I feel like they want him to feel so guilty for his girlfriend's passing, right? So they are bashing him, like, "Oh my God, how could you be out there? How could you be laughing? How could you be out there telling jokes?" All this other stuff. And he's wearing the armor of God. That is straight armor of God that he has on him. That's only God that's pushing him through. But he has 3 kids. And if he is to soak down and wallow at that point, that's all those children have at a point as a parent figure. They're all they have. So he has to keep on going. He has to keep on pushing forward. And it's just sad that they judge him because they want him to be this sad, broken out person on Instagram every day. So it's like, at that point, like, damn if you do, damn if you don't. Because if he's happy, you're not grieving. If he's going to be sad all the time, oh my God, would you get over it? Would you heal? Like, you got kids to look after. So it's like, pick a side and stand on it. I admire his strength, but he says he cries in private. He goes through his motions, but he still got to push forward. He still got a purpose on this earth. So if God spared your life to go another day, continue to walk in your purpose. Yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to be extremely hard. I can only imagine that, but he's walking, and that's a great example. And he's a male at that. So we don't give male their flowers about grieving of a spouse as well. So I give him his flowers. Next, we have fear. hmm A significant loss can trigger your fears and enhance your worries. If you lost your partner, your job, or your home, for example, you may feel anxious, helpless, insecure about your future. You could start experiencing panic attacks, and I talked about that in my anxiety episode last month. The death of a loved one can trigger your fears about your own mortality, facing life without that person, or the responsibilities you now face alone. So if you're married, and God forbid your spouse passed away, and they was the financial provider for you, and you stayed at home and you didn't work, you're really going to start grieving the loss, and then grieving the lifestyle that you had, and then you're gonna start thinking like, how am I going to make it now? I don't have no job, or this other stuff. So then it's really a lot. So that's another thing that um I'm not gonna say prepare for, but always save your money, save, because God forbid, you just never know. Don't have a plan like, oh, okay, he's gonna die X, Y, and Z because you about to kill him off. But it's like, no, always, have something for yourself as well, just in case. Have life insurance. Life insurance is a blessing. I pay out of pocket for it. If you need, it's something, it's a necessity. You never know, and I don't want them burdens on my family or my children. So definitely get into, look into life insurance. The last emotion is anger. If you lost a loved one or any other loss that I mentioned, you can do this. Your emotions will spike, especially out of anger, because now you need to find somebody at fault. Like somebody has to be responsible, and then you start getting resentful, right? So if you lost a loved one, you may be angry with yourself, with God, the doctors, or even the person who died for abandoning you. I hear this line a lot too, especially even movies and stuff like that. How could you leave me? Why did you leave me? Which is just a reaction, of course, but it's not a rational one. Let's be real. Why would anybody want to leave their significant other? Why would anybody want to leave this earth? It's like, if you had a choice to live or die, especially, suicide is something different. But if you had a choice, why would I want to die? So it's just like, there's no happy meaning. Like, it could be an insult in a way too. Like, why would I die? Like, people, he looking down at me like, what do you mean? Why would I want to die? Like, come on now, makes sense. Why would I want to leave you like this, knowing that, And sometimes it's out of that person's hands. It's out of control. Like, that person can't do anything. But to make ourselves feel better, we do that. We start to blame them. With all that being said, though, there are some coping techniques in there that you can incorporate with your grieving, or you can just store so you can have it in the back of your mind and do further research on it. One thing that people feel they need to do when they grieve is eat their pain away. So this will cause, of course, weight gain. So you're going to grieve and you're going to dislike your body. So you're going to have a double dose of depression. So anyway, eating, I don't think that would be a healthy way of eating. That's the only thing I can say. That's not a healthy way of coping. But it's like, yeah, you can eat, but if you're eating 3 Big Macs and 2 cheeseburgers and Philly cheesesteaks all on one setting, honey, like, okay, we're going to see you on 60-pound life, and then you're still grieving. So please just watch that too, and you won't know that you're doing it. So definitely have a support team around you that can really slow you down a little bit. But anyway, the first thing to do is give yourself grace, but at the same token, face your feelings. You can try to suppress your grief, you can try to avoid it, but you can't avoid it forever. In order to heal, you have to acknowledge your pain. Trying to avoid your feeling of sadness and loss only prolongs your grieving process. Unresolved grief can also lead to complications as depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and health problems. Next, accept that grief can trigger many different unexpected emotions. So I would say plan ahead for your grief. So when I say plan ahead for your grief, like anniversary and holidays and certain milestones that is coming, and they're gonna spark those emotions. Be around somebody, or you can do something in honor of that person to make it a celebratory, happy moment. But just prep yourself. Be more conscious of it. Understand that your grieving process will be unique. And when I say it's unique, it's yours. Like, this is your own grieving thing, and people will tell you just to move on and get over it, but take it day by day, minute by minute, second by second, if you must. It is yours, and feel it, deal with it how you must, because nobody can understand those pain and emotions that you're going through, especially if you lost, say, if you lost a husband, okay, but if you lost your job, you're going to tell me to get over losing my job, or you have a job? How's that going to work, Or, my pet of 15,000 years done passed away, and you just bought a new poodle today. How you going to tell me to get over that, and you have this? So a lot of people can tell you what to do because they're not in that predicament. Then, most importantly, seek support. Have support. Even have somebody on standby of a friend, a positive friend, an encouraging friend. Go tap into your faith, whomever you believe into, get into your faith, whether that's the strength that's really going to push you through. Therapy. I always encourage therapy, because therapy is good. Jesus, they found my cousin's body on my bed last week, and I'm so sorry to hear that. And then, Jesus, and that's when we're going to pray for you. I'm going to send out a prayer for you, and I'm praying for your family as well, because that's something that is definitely tragic. And I hope, that I'm here for you. If you need me, you can reach out as best way as you can to make sure you're with somebody that supports you. Right. Can't imagine something like that. And we can't tell you, girl, to get over it or whatever. No. Take your time, grieve it, process it, and work through it. Minute by minute, second by second. Next, support yourself emotionally by taking care of yourself physically. The mind and the body are connected. When you feel healthy and physical, you may be able to cope emotionally. Okay, Beth. You may be able to cope emotionally as much as you can. Reduce your stress, your fatigue by getting enough sleep, eating right, and exercising. I always say exercising because that's what most people say. Oh, we need to exercise. I don't have that much time in the day to exercise. I don't want to exercise because I don't want to be sore after. But some people do exercising, sure. I would preferably do yoga because I feel like that's more relaxing and is more meditating. I could put on a white noise. I could really do more. But exercising, I need like that upbeat tempo thing, and I'm not trying to match the music. So I feel like yoga would definitely help. Most importantly, do not use drugs or alcohol to numb your pain. To lift your mood, or that's a temporary fix for a long-term problem. And then every time you start having problems and everything, you're going to start using. And that's a route you don't want to go from, because that's a long recovery. So try not to pick up a bottle or use anything. And like I said before, recognize the difference between grief and depression. Also, again, seek a therapist. Journaling is always healthy. Express your feelings in a tangible and creative way. So like scrapbooking, you do a letter, like writing a letter to that person about how your day is going. We'll talk. You need to substitute that for coffee. You love coffee, and if I need to go ship out some coffee to you, that's what we're going to do. We're going to write that person, do some other techniques, creating new memories to honor the person you lost. So what triggered my business is the loss of my grandfather. I was writing a book. I was writing it for like 3 years, the Braley King story. And I was always in and out. Then when my grandfather passed, I was like, no, I got to be serious about it. And then my uncle passed. So I'm like, okay, now I can put him in it. I can honor him as well. Yeah, you're welcome, love. That it can spark different things, start creating new memories, start venturing off, stepping out on faith, and then make it a legacy honoring that person. Another thing, if you don't feel comfortable talking to a therapist consistently, there is a crisis support services. And the number is 775-784-8090. Or their website is cssnv.org. And I'm going to attach it to the comments as well. They are anonymous, but you can talk to them. And it's not like you could talk to them this one time and that's okay. We feel like it's okay. But you can consistently keep on talking to them, but you'll talk to different people. It's not like you're talking to a therapist. And some people feel like that's good. But overall, that's what I have on grief. And just doing the research on it and understanding it has really, I'm not gonna say I don't want anybody to pass away, but it really helps me a little bit, especially with my life coaching thing. So if somebody want to come to me and talk to me about grief, I feel like I can steer them in a good path, right? So concluding, I have some Ask Tati questions, and some of the questions were pertaining to the episode that I'm doing now. And if you want to ask Tati some questions, it's a form on our website that you can fill out. And when you are doing it, please specify if you want it to be public or private. So one of the questions are there different types of grief? So the main ones is 3 types. It's anticipatory grief, the feeling of grief or loss that I felt before the loss actually happens. So this goes to people with dementia and cancer. So it's like a prolonged thing. So you know it's coming. So, but you know you start grieving them before. I have a client who has dementia, so I feel like I did that. Complicated grief, when the intensity of the grief has not decreased in months after the loved one or spouse. So this one goes to your spouse or child. I feel like those are the 2 good examples I can say. I know a parent who has been grieving for years, and it's sad. Like they really taking it bad, and it's been years since their child was taken, but it's still like the tragedy of it, and that's that complicated grief. Disenfranchised grief is known as the hidden grief or sorrow. It refers to any grief that goes acknowledged or unvalidated by social norms. So, example of that, death of a partner, an ex-partner, death of an abuser, a death of a patient, or a pet. And then this one was a good one as well. What are some coping strategies to deal with the grief of a relationship? I feel like, again, society doesn't normalize taking breaking up as a real loss. It's like, okay, get over it type thing. But it is bad. And especially if men try to grieve a relationship, they get punked by their friends, or you a itch, you this, that, and the third. But it's really thing. First thing I would say is don't just move on. Don't find a rebound. Don't find somebody for entertainment. Especially if you've been in a relationship like a 2+ years. Like, don't do that. And that kind of relationship is called like an intensity relationship, which can really cause some type of grief over that relationship as well. So I would say do a self-pause. Within the self-pause, you're making emotional and mental space for yourself. So I say APA. Allow yourself to feel, process your feelings, and accept your feelings. If you need to go to therapy, do that too. But in that time after, that relationship breakup, take time for yourself. Heal yourself. The only thing we do is we leave one relationship and we jump into the next one with the same baggage, the same problems, and we don't heal ourselves. Let's heal, clear ourselves, find our boundaries so we can know what to do with the next relationship, see our red flags, because we always like to jump into another relationship because it reminded us of that ex. And that's why it never worked out, because we're ignoring the red flags. So definitely take time for you. And I would like to make some announcements as we close out. I have a webinar, 10-4, Raise a Millennial. So I was talking to somebody and she's like, oh, I would love to do it, but I don't have the $10. So I decided to make the webinar free because it's a resource that people want, but I don't want them to feel like, oh, they have to pay the $10. If this is something you want to do and it's just for our kids, sure, it's free. If you would like to join it, let me know. The deadline is October 2nd to sign up. And then, of course, my Shake the Room anti-bully movement. So, gosh, 11-year-old, her name is Felicia Melendez. I think she lives in New Jersey. 11 years old. She was being bullied. Her parents reached out to the school. They did everything that they could. And she went in the school bathroom and she killed herself. That was so heavy on my heart, because it's like, what else? Like, why don't the schools take it serious? Oh, they're just being kids. No, stop saying kids would be kids. And those parents should be held accountable for their kids' actions as well. So that's what the Shake the Room Anti-Bully is about. We could go through all means to make sure your child or yourself is feeling good, and safety is number one key, right? And I have a promo. You see these lashes, honey? See them? Yes, they're from Lynn's Nail Lab, and this right here is called Bay. I love them because they're so light. Like, they're really light and they're cute, and they're like, I guess they're wispy. I don't know about lashes, but they're like really cute, as you can see. You know, I just like how light they are. I couldn't believe how light. Like, I had to text her like, "Bitch, how come you didn't tell me about this before?" So I'm gonna have to place an order. And they're not even that long. See, they're not that long, but they're cute. I like it. And they're $8. I'm going to attach her website to the comments as well. And last but not least, my next episode is October 11th. So I do my episodes 3 Wednesdays out of the end of the month. So I take the first Wednesday off. So I'm still getting over my anxiety to be public, but I'm working through it. And I'm going to start vlogging. Because what I'm doing in my home life corresponds to what I'm doing in my safe place with Tati, and I'm just making being transparent to know I'm not just telling you to do something, or I'm not saying let's do something just for the hell of it. Like, I'm actually doing it. So I'm gonna start doing that. I'm going to work my anxiety for that, but I'm gonna start doing it and pushing myself. But it's 10:11, and then I'll have my cousin Kanisha on. She has another resource, mothers, daughters, and sisters, and another resource group, just to support one another. And so far, so good. Definitely, if you're Christian based, that's what it is. So, and it's a good thing. And it's Tuesdays via Zoom, and literally it starts at 7. We don't get up to 12. I'd be like, oh my god, like I have to do everything before. That's how much of a good time it is. It's laughter and everything. But she'll be on October 11th, and I will have more details about that with the flyer. But I thank you guys for listening and tapping in. And I'm going to put this on my YouTube page. So like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys next time. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode as much as I did. Join the family and follow me on Instagram at MySafePlaceWithTati, and visit my website www.mysafeplace.org. Until next time, bye guys.